On the way back from the 2017 Vectric User Group Meeting, I reflected on what a great event it was. This year I had the opportunity to present, and I took that chance to crowdsource the next Hack of the Week. Together with the group, we came up with a theme, and that theme wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. So Pet Memorial, that really wasn't on my radar at all, but it really spoke to what people in the room were thinking at the time, and that's fantastic. And that is what, in essence, a Hack of the Week is. Something you need in a pinch, or something that maybe you aren't expecting. So I took that idea, I left the room for a couple hours, came back again, and I presented this Hack of the Week assembled layout and project. I wasn't entirely happy with it. I know in the short time that I had and the models I had on hand, it was a good effort, but I felt that I could do better. So I promised myself that when I got back home again, that I would fix it. That's what I did. So this is a brand new assembled layout for Hack of the Week number 166 and the actual models that come with that. You'll notice that the top of the garden stone is now flat and the wings are a little bit more angelic, which I think is quite nice. So what I did also was I decided that I should make a finished product with this, and that's important because when I was thinking about these things, I thought of it in more of a large scale sense, where you could actually create a Christmas ornament just from the assembled layout. You can create a little wall plaque, you can create a frame, picture frame maybe with this down in the corner, or you can make a mold and create a casting for an actual garden stone to put in the garden. But one of the things that was mentioned when I was asking about the theme was that maybe a pet urn would be a great idea. And so I thought of that when I was making this. And when I got back, I made a pet urn. So the next little bit of video you're going to see is going to be the process of me using VCarve Desktop and the assembled layout to create this urn and how I did it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and talk to you about what I would change if I was going to do this again. Here we go.
In the next demos, I'm going to be using Aspire, but the same tools are available in VCarve Pro and Desktop, so feel free to use those. I went and opened up a fresh copy of Aspire, set up my job, and then I brought in my assembled layout so that I could size it properly for the size of my urn. Once I had that sized, I decided that I needed to get an outline from that, so I created an outline from my selected component, and then I hid my component so I could just see my outlines. Now I needed to go in, and I had forgotten that I was going to be using millimeters, not inches, so I needed to go in and verify the thickness of my material that I was going to be using in millimeters. And so once I had that, I went in and I selected that vector, and I'm actually going to create the wall thickness of my urn. So I offsetted that vector in about 15 millimeters. Wasn't happy with that. I decided to go with 10 millimeters instead. I think that was much better. Those are the only two vectors I'm going to need to create the two rings I need to build up my urn. So once I had those, I'm going to create a profile cut right through my material. I'm going to go on the outside of those lines, and then now I'm going to go ahead and add in some tabs. I miscounted the number of tabs I needed, so once I added those, I went and I double clicked on the ones I didn't need anymore to delete them, which worked out really quite well. I really only needed 4 on the outside and 4 on the inside. I set up the actual dimensions of those tabs. I like to use 3D tabs, and I calculated that. Previewed my calculations, and everything looked pretty good. So I'm going to run this toolpath twice for 2 rings, which would give me a double, once I glued them together, the perfect height for the inside of my urn. For the next toolpath, this was for the plate that goes in the bottom of my urn. I went and copy and pasted the outside vector into a new job, and then went ahead and created the tooling for that vector. It was just a profile cut, but if you notice that I forgot to change the thickness of my material, which is fine, and it'll tell me that in just a minute. So I'm going to add in my tabs, make sure everything is fine. This time I'm going to add in 5 tabs. Check everything out, take a look at it. I noticed then that my material was set too thick, so I changed that to the new material thickness, recalculated my tool paths, Took a look at those to make sure everything looked okay, and everything looked great. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save those off. The next thing I had to do was develop the toolpaths for the top. So I went in and I created a job the same size I did for the rings. I brought in my assembled layout, sized it the same size that I had used to create the vector to cut the rings with, made sure everything looked okay. I imported in the paw print vectors from the Furry Friends #1 project because I wanted to actually recess a paw print in the middle of the heart. So when I brought those in, I had to ungroup them, deleted out the small paw prints, and then I attempted to align the paw print with the center of the heart. Now I couldn't see the bitmap representation of my component very well, so I ended up having to right click on that and change the properties, make the transparency a little bit darker so that I could make sure that I could see what was going on. And then I went ahead and created some text for VCarving on the top, the name of the pet. I chose a font that was pretty easy to VCarve, because I wasn't quite sure whether I was going to VCarve it or I was actually going to use a ball nose end mill to go in and clean those out. So something without any serifs seemed to make a whole lot of sense. I laid out the cookie text onto the ribbon and adjusted the kerning, and then I went ahead and created the text for the top flat spot of the garden stone. This is where having no texture on that garden stone certainly helped out. Typed in the text I wanted, had to do a little bit of modification, decided that it wouldn't fit straight across, went back in again, made it into 2 lines of text. That worked out great. Jogged it into place, copied that to the bottom. I wanted to use the same font size and everything with the stuff for the date at the bottom, so I copied it down there. Then I ended up changing that to 2016, that was the year. Still wasn't quite big enough, so I had to size it up a little bit, and I was kind of happy with that layout once everything was all done. Now it's time to start making toolpaths. So I went in, I checked my material thickness to make sure everything was okay, went in and did my roughing pass. I chose to rough with a vector boundary, so I had to go in and make sure that I created a vector boundary from that component. Then I went in and set my boundary offset. I wanted that to be just slightly larger than the actual tool that I was going to cut with. That way it would go outside my actual component a little bit when it was machining. Left a little bit of an allowance behind and went ahead and calculated that. Of course, I previewed my tooling to make sure everything was okay, and that looked great. So now on to the finishing pass. So I went ahead, selected my tool, offsetted it again slightly larger than my tool itself, just so that I could overshoot the edge of the component, and I went ahead and I calculated that. That looked great. Now next it was time to go ahead and VCarve or pocket out the details on the top. So I decided to go ahead and pocket out the paw print with the same finishing tool that I used for the top. I figured it would save me a tool change and some time. It would take a bit of time to VCarve that. So I went ahead and did that, made sure that I projected that toolpath onto my actual component, and then off I went, and that looked fine. I did want to make it a little bit deeper, so I adjusted the toolpath slightly to make it a little bit deeper. That looked great. So now I went on to the text. Now I wasn't sure whether or not, again, I wanted to pocket that out with my finishing tool, or whether I wanted to VCarve it. So I thought, well, let's test it out with the pocketing tool and see what happens. So I just did a quick little try, made sure I projected it onto my component, and it didn't work. So then I had to go in and VCarve it. And one of the great things about this is when you preview your toolpath, you can make sure whether or not you're going deep enough with your VCarving. So you'll notice that I do this 3 or 4 times. I'll go in and slowly make it deeper until I'm happy with the result that I get. And really what I was looking for was just to make sure that the contrast between the paw print and the text was fine. If I had been thinking, I could have just gone in the same depth that I had with the pocket toolpath for the paw print, but I decided to do it the hard way. Yeah, I guess I was happy with that. So now I'm going to go ahead and do my profile cut. So I'm going to select the outside vector, and you'll note that the bitmap that represents the relief or the component isn't faded again. It's still as dark as it can be. That's because I didn't go in, I didn't right click on that component and change its properties again. I just left it the way it was. So I went and edited my tabs, make sure they were in a reasonable spot where I could remove them. Again, I like to use the 3D tabs. It seems to make things look a little cleaner on the edge. And I had a look at that and I was pretty happy. Now I went and resorted my toolpaths a bit. I wanted to do the roughing pass, the profile cut all in one go, do the 3D finishing, the pocket of the paw print, and then the V-carving last.
Okay, so now that you know how I actually developed the toolpaths for this, I want to point something out. I didn't show you how I made the inside ring for this. This was an afterthought that I put on. I kind of felt that most people at first would just want to glue the lid on and then keep it around that way. But then in the end, I felt that it'd be more functional if somebody wanted to use it as a memory box to actually have it so you could take the lid on and off. So all I did to create this was I opened up the file that I used to create the rings. I copied out the inside ring, pasted it into a new job, and then ended up just doing a profile cut on the outside, adding in my tabs, exactly the same process as I used to build the bottom of the box. So that was pretty easy, and I cut really fast. So that was great. Now the next little bit of video you're going to see is me actually cutting it on the Craft CNC, which worked out really well. And I went through the process of cutting all the parts, then cleaning them up, and then ultimately doing the finishing of the final piece. Let's go ahead and show you that. So what would I change if I was going to do this again? Well, the first thing I would do is, as you saw in the video, is it was sometimes kind of difficult to get the bottom bit underneath the lid registered on there properly. So I would have done a flip on this, a double-sided part, and that way it would have lined up perfectly for the actual base, which is great. And if I would also go ahead and, when I was machining these rings, I would take it and actually use little dowel holes to line things up. If I had thought through better, I would have done that. That would have made the assembly a little easier. Everything would have been lined up, and it was a whole lot less sanding involved. I also would have, if I had a bigger machine, a little faster, I may have incorporated the base right into the bottom ring. That would have been kind of nice. It would have saved me from having to line that all up, but still, that wasn't too incredibly difficult. And I think that's pretty much it. I'm pretty happy with the end result, and this actually, I think, will be used as a memory box for my daughter. We had a pet pass away a few years ago, and she might want to put some of the trinkets from that in this. That's kind of it. I'm pretty happy with this. Oh yeah, sorry. One more thing that I would be a little more careful with is that when I was cutting off the tabs that were holding all of those rings in place, I wasn't being super careful. I ended up gouging the wood a bit, and that was a little hard to sand out, but it still, it's not a big deal. It worked out perfectly fine. So what I would like to do is issue you a challenge. If you choose to download the free assembled layout, this one, the new one, and the one that I created at the user group, and create a project, why don't you post that on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and hashtag us, hashtag D&M Challenge 1. And as long as you follow us, we should be able to find that. And when we do, we'll put everybody in for a random draw. Maybe we'll give it a limited time. I'll list that on either the website where you're watching this video from right now, or in the links below. I'll note when the time will be. And we'll do a random draw for some design and make content. I think that'd be great. Now, don't worry if you happen to get to this late. If you happen to purchase the project, then the Hack the Week number 166 project, and use it, go ahead and post it. Make sure you hashtag us, and we'll take a look at it. You just never know. If you really like a project, we might send you something special. But don't limit yourself though to just using the assembled layout. You can go ahead and as long as you use one model from the Hack of the Week, number 166, you can hack in any models you happen to have in your library. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you liked the content that was there for you. If you have any questions, just leave them below. If you like the video, please like it. If you'd like to share it, I'd love for you to share it. And if you're not on our mailing list, please sign up for our mailing list at designandmake.com. If you're interested in a little more information about Craft CNC, it's the free DIY plans for a CNC machine. You can download them, look them over. If you want to build it, you can use those plans, or if you want to build on it, you can. And also, if you don't have any Vectric software, you're kind of new to this, or you have a DIY CNC at home, and really you just want to add a small relief element to a project, download our free Design and Make Machinist software. You can machine any of our models on designandmake.com one at a time, and you need a dish or a raise as a motif, add them to your projects. I'd love to see what you do with that. Okay? So please like or share, and I hope you're safe.